the spirits of nature, shunned so much by Christian fundamentalism and reborn now in the course of the New Age movement and the revival of the folklore or of fairies, as it was, for example, rediscovered by Dr. Evans Wentz in his remarkable study, The Fairy Faith in Celtic Countries, and observed by clairvoyant Dora van Gelder in her book The Real World of Fairies, have certain well-defined characteristics, and they are quite distinct of human beings. Leadbeater explains, I quote, "We might almost look upon the nature spirits as a kind of astral humanity, but for the fact that none of them, not even the highest, possess a permanent reincarnating individuality. Apparently, therefore, one point in which their line of evolution differs from ours is that a much greater proportion of intelligence is developed before permanent individualization takes place. But of the stages through which they have passed and those through which they have yet to pass, we can know little. The life periods of the different subdivisions vary greatly, some being quite short, others much longer than our human lifetime. We stand so entirely outside such a life as theirs that it is impossible for us to understand much about its conditions, but it appears on the whole to be a simply joyous, irresponsible kind of existence, much such as a party of happy children might lead among exceptionally favorable physical surroundings. Though tricky and mischievous, they are rarely malicious unless provoked by some unwarrantable intrusion or annoyance, but as a body they are also partake to some extent of the universal feeling of distrust for man, and they generally seem inclined to resent somewhat the first appearances of a neophyte on the astral plane, so that he usually makes their freaks. They soon accept him as a necessary evil and take no further notice of him, while some among them may even after a time become friendly and manifest pleasure on meeting him." End of quote. What this means is that by impacting upon reality through thought and intent, and through emotional focus, we actually create elementals, which are thought forms and that are somehow embodied and individualized. Now, what I conclude from this insight, extrapolating the research of clairvoyant Charles Webster Leadbeater to shamanism, is that the shaman, when concocting the traditional ayahuasca brew and when focusing on it, actually builds elementals by his strong intent and the thought forms resulting from his focus. These elementals then are absorbed by the plant matrix or the psychoactive compounds in entheogenic plants and are transmitted to the adept who desires to be initiated by the shaman through ingesting the traditional ayahuasca brew. There is another very recent research that also seems to corroborate in some way my hypothesis, and also Leadbeater's clairvoyant observation. It has this time nothing to do with shamanism, but comes from a core physics research. It is William A. Tiller's highly innovating research on the power of intent involved in the transformation of matter. In his book, Conscious Acts of Creation, and the DVD with the same title, Dr. Tiller, Stanford University Professor Emeritus, claims that there is ample evidence for the fact that conscious and condensed thought and intent impact upon matter and actually change matter. I quote from the back cover of his book. Based upon years of detailed research, Dr. Tiller has amassed convincing experimental data showing that in seemingly the same cognitive space, basic chemical reactions and basic material properties can be strongly altered by human intentions. Essentially, he says, we are all capable of performing what we typically think of as miracles. End of quote. If our intent projected upon time and space creates what Leadbeater and others call elementals, or if it creates thought forms, or if it creates a collapsing of the wave function, to use an expression of quantum physics, really does not matter. We might as well call it magic thought power or telepathy. What imports is that we see that there is no magic other than the impact of spirit upon visible and tangible reality. When I extrapolate this research that is amply documented by additional scientific research in the meantime, then I must conclude that shamanic power is more than the mechanistic ingestion of plant chemistry to make things happen. Then I will see that it's the preparation of the concoction, much more than its chemical ingredients that will make for the outcome of the experience. And that's ultimately intent projected into the subtle matrix of plant consciousness. That is the trigger here.